Hello and welcome to another episode of Alan Revisits, or revises, that's what it is, I'm revising. Last time we were revising my screenplay, The Second Apple, which is a retelling of the Golden Apple myth from the Greeks, the prelude to the Trojan War, as it were. Some see it as a justification, whatever you want to call it. Here we are, it's The Second Golden Apple, our main character, Bergen, who has fallen in love at first sight with a woman that he can't find because, well, it's the big city and he can't find her. He's transitioned from his day job into our first mystical scene. And here we pick up the story where it gets interesting and lush. And if I were to describe this, it would be... there would be colors that you wouldn't normally see in the rest of the film that would distinguish it specifically from all of the other the reality of things, and that would be our cue for that something is happening. But this would be something that also that the photographer, what is it called? Anyway, the director and the everybody else will stage up and put in order and sequence so that the audience will know. For the screenwriter, all you need to know is to describe it in terms of a lush and verdant hillside far from any city. That's our transition. His sneakers sink into tall grass. He staggers. Yeah, I don't need to say that he staggers. It's implicit. Bright sunshine forces him to shade his eyes. A hearty burble of water makes him turn. It's ongoing. Makes him turn behind him. He turns and finds an impossibly elegant and classical marble fountain with three goddesses before it. Athena, who's... so we're going to describe some of the other goddesses here. Athena, whose brow of wisdom is matched only by the wit dancing in her potent gray eyes. A white feathered owl silently flaps under her shoulder as she considers Bergen. Artemis, who could run a marathon while standing still, her countenance guarded as she toys with a string of a lethal bow. A quiver of arrows rides at her hip, the fletching of each from a different exotic bird. And finally, Aphrodite, whose beauty cannot be contained in anything other than legend. The hint of a smile she offers could melt steel. The hint of a smile, the mere hint of her smile could melt steel. All right, those are our three goddesses we'll be using in this run. I have reasons for each of those that'll be discussed later on. Needless to say, Aphrodite is considered the most powerful of them. She was directly created from a portion of Primordial. Basically, Kronos himself, I believe. And as such is actually technically greater than the other deities. I won't get into the logistics of that. It's just important to know that she is, but she also isn't. Whereas they are specific to their idiom, so to speak, she is far more powerful in her generality of beauty and love. So here we go. Bergen blinks in incomprehension as the three goddesses. I probably shouldn't capitalize that. Goddesses take a step forward toward him. Ladies, choose, mortal, Artemis asks. Now, having Artemis say something first lets us glide into the others immediately. We're wrapping this up for the impossibility of it all. A sudden gleam in the sun. An apple flawlessly crafted of an impossible gold. Crafted the purest gold. Rises up and hovers before. I'm not going to say rises up. It falls from the sun and hovers before. The fruit rotates. The word... Now, this is Don't ask me to pronounce it. It's Greek. I checked with a professional Greekist. No, I checked with a professional linguist on this particular word in Greek. I have my notes somewhere. It means the second apple, the second golden apple. Is revealed and glows with a godly blue. Is that a math problem? Because it looks like a math problem. Sideways to Artemis. I told you. Sideways to Athena. Give him a goose then, dear sister. Look, I don't understand, Bergen says. Athena tilts her head. A halo of blue surrounds her. She gestures toward Bergen. A halo of blue flashes briefly about his head. What kind of blue? Electric blue. The same halo. The same flashes about his. There we go. By the way, the program that I'm using to write this in is Celtx, as before. It's very useful for organizing these things, and you'll notice it does help keep things in order with the spacing of the tabs and all of that, leaving you to be creative when you need to be creative. All right, Bergen. Why three? His interrupted thought is why three goddesses of the Greek pantheon are standing before me. I mean, it's amazing, but glances at the apple. Hey, isn't this supposed to say Callisti instead of Potentiatos? To the fairest, etc. You are not Paris. This is not then. Which is why it says to the most worthy of desire, and that's the translation for the thing. I would have used Callisti as the title, but no one would get it. And like I said, you kind of have to make things simple for screenplays. You can add complexity later. The director will anyway, maybe the producer. Nice use of the superlative there, dative, singular, and feminine, of course. His eyes widen. How do I know that? Athena's owl spreads its wings wide, gives an amused flap as Athena regards him in full. Choose me, Bergen Hoffman, and I shall fill your cup with what you have only just sipped. You have merely sipped. Let's make this a little more goddess-like. A blessing that shall gift you with the finest mind in a generation. Artemis plucks at a bow whose string hums. The string hums with power. I don't know how to with this term warily, but my sisters offer you an empty pouch. Choose me, and you shall master every skill from the arbalist to zebra riding, and in doing so, become a modern Hercules. Aphrodite gives a giggle that could pitch 1,000 tents. And yes, that is a euphemism. Aphrodite, don't bother with those two. I won this contest before, and I shall win it again, for what does a man desire more than a love to call his own? Choose me, and any mortal you wish shall warm your heart. That's a bit wrong. Choose me, and any mortal you wish shall warm your bed. Gives a breathing sound. But then, you have that already, don't you? You know that already, don't you? You know that already, do you not? That girl you look for with every glance, the one who kissed your soul by happenstance? Nice little rhyme there. Maybe it'll even survive. Do you not long to taste her lips and drown in her eyes? Artemis's eyes grow cold. Artemis's burn hot. To Aphrodite, Artemis says, the race has not yet begun. And already you cheat, sister. I must agree, the bias here is quite evident. To Bergen. Bergen Hoffman, know this. If you do not choose me, then you shall suffer idiocy, the likes of which drinking your weight in wine could only begin to bestow. Turn your back on me, Artemis says, and you shall stumble through all your days. Aphrodite does not stop smiling. You know all too well what I could take away. Bergen swallows in fearful understanding. The three goddesses, his electric halo flares. The three goddesses gaze upon him and wait waiting with rising impatience. Bergen clears his throat. If I remember right, this story didn't play out well for Paris the first time, or those he loved. He had Helen for 10 years, Aphrodite says. Fruitful years, Athena says. Must you pun even now? Athena almost hides a grin. They're sisters, so there you go. Bergen shakes his head. I don't want this. Any of this. Not wanting? Not possible. You are the judge of this contest. And if I refuse, you'll what? Release the Kraken? The goddess's eyes narrow in warning. Take that back. Father Zeus has decreed you to be our arbiter. You must choose. Choose what? Looks to Aphrodite. To be a handsome dolt to Artemis, or a prickish jock, fondly to Athena, or a stereotypical geek? Bergen considers the floating apple. No, I don't want any of that. I choose not to choose. The three goddesses exchange a brief, weighty glance. Choose or be cursed. Yes, exactly. I would like to point out that choosing not to choose is in fact a choice, to Bergen. However, in this circumstances, you must choose one of us or suffer our curses accordingly. And we're going to just not to Bergen. We know it's to Bergen. Amused. I would normally agree. However, in this circumstance, you must choose one of us or suffer our curses accordingly. All three wraths or just two of them. There's no way to... Bergen eyes the apple, then glances down at the box cutter in his hand. In a flash, he grasps the apple and brings the cutter. Hard steel cuts the golden skin like butter. The goddesses gasp in disbelief. And again, we will. Aphrodite, you can't carve up this sacred apple. If Bergen, with his fingers sticky with golden juice, well, I just did. The apple falls into three distinct portions in his hand. The first says poth, which he tosses to Athena. The word poth is a Creole synonym for forehead. Appropriate, yes? The second portion says ein, tosses it to Artemis. The word ein in German means one, rather fitting for the goddess of virgins. The last portion reads otatis. Bergen tosses it to Aphrodite. And lastly, otatis, which is added to most objectives to form the Athena gesture sharply. A writer order sees around her. And this is later Bergen's blue... I don't need that. It doesn't need to be red. And it's later Bergen's blue halo. Halo fades into something super case thing. Impertinent. Mortal. Man. Their divine auras flare to life. Calm blue, hot pink, and pure white. Bergen rubs at the juice on his fingers and squares himself for what is to come. Bergen, it all sounded so good in my head, and it usually does. But there's no escaping from this. The divine auras crackle together for a talkative instant. Bergen Hoffman, Athena says, you shall suffer our collective wrath until you relent. Their divine fires flare in full as they raise their hands as one toward Bergen. He stumbles back, sprawl, and we're back in the storage closet. We're back in reality. Into dingy drums of olive oil and battered cans of tomato sauce that clatter down about him amid a shadowy storage closet. Tony is off screen. You all right in there? Bergen. Eyes dart around madly. Maybe. He focuses. Is 17 times 112 still 1,004? I think it is. Tony, off screen. No idea. Why? Bergen pushes himself up from the containers. Several more fall, and he catches each of them with effortless grace, replaces them in order with equal ease. Bergen stares down at his hands in disbelief. There's Done. Bergen stares at his work. Pads into the kitchen, wary as a cat in a kennel. He retrieves a calculator from beside a stack of receipts. Tony looks up from kneading dough. Where's the olive oil? And the napkins? Bergen, as he punches in numbers. Have you checked the upper shelf? I put out both when I came in. Tony leans back to regard a high shelf near the ceiling where a bundle of napkins and a container of olive oil are nearly hidden from sight. Costas must have tidied things up. Bergen stares at the calculator whose display reads 1004. So he's right. Bergen softly to himself. That's memory, logic, and reflexes intact. Bergen idly lifts the work table beside him. It rises without so much as a grunt from him. Strength, real good. So what did they take from? Bergen grasps at his crotch, lets out a relief, then lets out. Tony, what the hell, man? Bergen turns, finds Tony watching him with the container of olive oil in hand. I just had an epiphany. I'll be right back. Bergen heads for the exit. Tony calls after him. Wash your hands afterwards. Yes, it's that sort of joke. Exterior, Gergo's Pizza. Same scene, so we don't have to do night day. Bergen steps out onto the busy sidewalk where pedestrians hurry. His eyes look about. And fall upon an urban beauty of a woman who should never ever give him the time of day. Bergen walks right up to her. Bergen, pardon me. She starts to turn away. I need a no-shit assessment from a gorgeous woman. Am I a sexy beast? She slows, stops, peers over in disbelief that becomes something else as she inspects him in his working garb. Yes, perhaps you are. Bergen, I was afraid of that. She blinks. Thanks, have a lovely day. Bergen withdraws, leaves her amused and confused. Interior, Gergo's Pizza. Bergen walks in and stares at his bike for a long moment. Kostas looks up from his game of Tavili. Is all right? The crony elbows Kostas, apparently in English. The crony asks, flush, nervous, could be meth. Kostas in oddly proficient English. His teeth are fine, though. His eyes are dark these days. I worry about him, you know. Bergen, it's not meth. I just need a break. Kostas raises an eyebrow, English accented again. You know little Greek? English proficient again? Have you been taking night classes or perhaps an immersion study? Bergen, something like that. I'll just be back back, under his breath, hiding. Bergen hurries for the kitchen. Later. I don't need to say it's dusk, I just need to say it's later. Alright, Bergen is pushed out the door of Gergo's Pizza by Kostas along with a warmer packed with deliveries. His bicycle is rolled out afterwards. He sighs. Bergen sighs. And takes up his dual burdens. Not dual burdens. It's a triplet burden. So his burdens. We begin a montage. Now, when you do montages or a series of shots, you've got to have a good idea for what each of them is. You can't go too far. You can't go too little. It has to be specific and it has to be peppy and it has to live up to its name. It's a montage. Bergen zooms past slow cars down City Street as streetlights drive away the night. To life and drive away the night. Zooms. I don't need to say down cars. Zooms down a city street. He takes each turn, waves in and around. Weaves. Thanks you. In and around cars and pedestrians. Both. Then the next is a map of the city. All but rolls before him in the air, guides his way. A pair of seedy fellows watch him approach an apartment complex. The steely gaze he stabs them with turns. He gives them, puts them, the pair. The way he gives the pair, puts them on the back heel. He bicycles along the streets. A car lurches towards him, and yet he gracefully evades it, hops a curve, leaps off his bike, and runs alongside it a moment before he remounts and continues on as if nothing happened. I actually saw this happen with a friend of mine from way back who was about to spill his four-wheeler. So he essentially hopped off of it, ran alongside it until it regained its balance, and then threw himself back on. It was really an impressive feat of athleticism that he apparently did routinely. So there you go. He passes a soiree of women out for a sorry, I don't know if that's technically possible. Out for a night of clubbing and earns himself a wolf's whistle in passing. And then we're back to scenes. Gergo's Pizza night. Bergen exits Gergo's Pizza, rubbed furiously at a lipstick stain upon his cheek. Behind him, the open sign. Not flares out, it is turned over. Tony chuckles as he too exits, and padlocks the door behind them. So what, new body wash? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Tony locks up. Try me. Bergen shakes his head. Want to grab those beers? Bergen heads for a shadowed alley away from the street. No bars. Good God, who knows what'll happen there? We just go back to our place. Bergen is suddenly wary. Not you too. Tony is not gay at all. He's a friend. Not me what? Never mind. Look, do you know the legend of Callisti, the golden apple of discord? Tony says, sounds kind of familiar. An unseen female cat gives a plaintive mating yowl from somewhere nearby. Bergen clears his throat. Eris, goddess of discord, crafted an apple of gold. This was way back during the heroic age. Like all that Clash of the Titans stuff, Jupiter, Venus, Zeus, and Aphrodite, and the, you know what, screw the history. 3 goddesses approached me today. Tony chuckles, clearly thinking this is a joke. It to be the start of a joke. There was Athena, mistress of intellect, Artemis, the huntress supreme, and Aphrodite Aphros herself. They wanted to reprise the whole golden apple thing by having me judge which of them was the most worthy of desire. When I refused to choose, they each cursed me with their most powerful blessing. Tony says, that doesn't sound so bad. Is this going to be a novel or a screenplay? Little meta there. That's okay. That's okay. It happened. It happened when I went to get the olive oil. Were there paint fumes involved? Don't I wish. Go ahead and ask me a question that I have no right to be able to answer. Blinkson's thought. Not that kind. Something technical. Numbers or stats. Okay. Of all the American League teams, which has never made it to the World Series? Phantom numbers pour through the air before Bergen amid ghostly flashes from baseball games caught on TV. The Seattle Mariners, Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and Texas Rangers. Whether or not this is true, you can always change the question that Bergen gets asked. It's just a technical one that you look up with Google to verify that it's correct. Tony fumbles for his phone. Really? As Tony taps on his phone, you didn't even know? Because the moment you asked, it was like I could recall every scrap of baseball I ever saw or heard, and it all went together like a child's puzzle. Tony looks up his phone, incredulous. You were right. I feel like I could run a marathon while pulling a plow. And women, you saw how it was out there for me. I could have any one of them, except the one I want. The one you can't find, your mystery woman. Well, you'd impress the socks off her if she was here. Just don't tell her about the goddesses. No, don't you see? That's the trap. If I pursue her with brains or brawn or charm, I'll be making a choice, won't I? The moment I choose, I'm screwed. Good screwed or bad screwed? Bergen stares at him. Oh, come on, that was funny. Bergen shakes his head. So what do you want to do now? Bergen, I'm going to wait it out. Stay in my room and just do nothing. That has to be the most elaborate excuse to slack off, ever. A sudden crash of glass fills the night air. Both men turn toward the sound. Across the street, a freshly broken window dribbles shards of glass. That's not good. Fresh smoke pours of a freshly broken window. Flames dance within. A promise of an inferno to come. A figure is silhouetted briefly by the flame. The scream of a young girl echoes off the alley walls. By the flame. Arms trying to push, trying to break through the rest of the glass. The scream of a young girl. Good God. Bergen charges to destruction without hesitation. Bergen over his shoulder to Tony. Call 911. Bergen races across 6 busy lanes, bounds over the hood of a car as though on a playground. Bergen grasps at the handle of the door. Locked. He smashes it open with a hammer clip and follows afterward. It follows. Charges in. Tendrils of smoke live out. Tony, cell phone now, lurches onto the sidewalk as car horn blare. He absently spares them the traditional city salute. That's the middle finger in case. Tony into the phone. Yeah, fire an explosion at somewhere off 1st Street. No, I can't see a number. Can't you just track my phone? Note something. Hold on. It's 19250. Listens to credits. I don't know. A studio thing. You want me to find the architect too? Bergen emerges. A limp woman lies slung over his shoulder while he guides a young, blackened girl by the hand. He sets the woman down. The girl rushes to her. Bergen coughs hard. Be right back. Tony and the girl stare. There's a cat. Bergen pulls the neck of his shirt up to cover his mouth, then strides in. The girl and Tony exchange astonishment. Holy shit. Sentiment. Tony seconds that sentiment and rolls the woman over. Her skin is pale and slowly growing blue. Mom? The girl asks. Tony slaps the woman. No response. Mom? Tony checks for a pulse, then clears her airway. Tony to the girl. You know CPR? Girl, I'm 10. It's got to be exclamation point. That's too... I don't think she'd say that, and we got to keep this realistic. She doesn't answer. Tony starts chest compressions. A car hurls itself through the shattered... A car? Yeah, a cat. How about? A cat hurls itself through the shattered door. Bergen follows it, nursing a fresh set of scratches. Well, that was worth it. Sees Tony giving CPR. Oh crap! Need a hand here. Whoever positions the. Let's say he did that. The woman's. Now in CPR, that's changed a little since I remember it, because you don't need breathing and chest compressions. They recommend just the chest compressions. Because you need to keep the blood flowing. You can do without oxygen more than you can do without blood flow. Moves in. And checks her pulse. Got a pulse? Yeah, she's still not breathing. Sees the compression. And lets Bergen give her the breath away. The woman coughs and shifts. Sirens rise up in the distance as a crowd gathers. More than a few cell phones snap pictures of Bergen and Tony as they carry the woman, the girl, holding... No, I don't think we did... When... I mean... Well, the girl... while the girl hugs her mother. Alright, so we've had our first turning. This is Bergen gets to be a hero. Later, same scene, so we don't do a scene title. Emergency vehicle swarm the flame-lit building. The woman is loaded on the ambulance along with her daughter, who grips her now. Waves to Bergen and Tony and slips into ambulance before the door closes. A fire chief, older and with the requisite mustache, turns towards the sooty pair. Civilians are not supposed to do something that ballsy. Don't worry, I'm not taking your job. Too dangerous. The fire chief chuckles and gives Bergen a pat on the back. Okay, so now we've had Bergen wanted to hide, but we can't have him do that. It's a very boring story if he just sits in his apartment until the curse wears off. Assuming it does. Maybe he just goes mad in there, which is an entirely different story, not the one we're telling. The one we're telling is a little more dynamic. But we've had our first turning. He's not going to be able to hide now, and we're going to move straight on with the story because we've got to have a good deal of compression. I mean, they could just go home and take a shower, and we could pick this up in a few days. If this was a novel or something, that's what we do. If it was a short story, we'd have a transition of some sort. But in a screenplay, we've got to keep rolling with it and keep the rhythm together. And that's all there is to it. So that was this episode of Alan Revises. We're going to pick up where we left off. We're about, only a quarter of the way through. But we'll keep going with this and see if we can't get the entirety of it revised to the point where I'm confident with it. We haven't had any major scene changes. We've only dribbled at the edges, so we'll see where this goes from here. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks.